halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads webcast with your host, Jordan Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the CRW podcast, and we've got a special one here for you today. That's right. Got the gangs all here for this one, and we got a ton of topics. We've titled this one Offseason Roundup because we've got so much to dive into. We're going to talk uniforms, recruiting, transfer portal, a lot of preseason fun stuff to get into as well. But joined by my great co-host, we've got Steven here.
What's going on, everybody?
And Big Bubba B-Rad Bradley.
Yeah, boys are back in the building for sure.
That's right. Back at it. And we're going to dive in on WVU football, but man, we got to talk about, kind of the elephant in the room right now. Can't bury the lead. How about the Mountaineer baseball team? I mean, you guys know I don't know too much about baseball. I've never really been able to, keep up with it and watch a baseball game from beginning to end of my whole life. But that's probably about to change coming up. West Virginia in the Super Regional, chance to go to the College World Series. You guys been keeping up with the Mountaineer baseball team?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
For me, it's like from a distance, you know what I mean? Like watching it on social medias. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've been following. I've actually been more into baseball this year than I have in recent years just because of the West Virginia baseball team. I think I watched a lot of them last year, but towards the end of it, I kind of got depressed, with the way things ended with that team last year. But
yeah, it really fell apart right at the end.
Yeah, I got really excited about what this team could do this year. I knew the talent we had coming back, but with it being Maisie's last ride and everything, I knew that it was probably going to be something special.
Yeah, when you see like a player like JJ Weatherhold, dude, like you can't help but watch it. You're just like, I want to see what happens. Dude is cranking out home runs after home runs last year, like looking crispy.
Yeah,
plagued by injury early this year, and like that really hurt the team. Like we kind of put him behind, and then I know like weak pitching, like down the stretch, like guys were like pulling it together here at the end. So yeah, it's been really fun to watch. Good story.
Looks like it's all coming together right at the perfect time here in the postseason too. Hopefully, I mean they've definitely got a lot of steam right now. Like you said, Weatherholt battling injury early, looks to be in full form now. And
yeah, he had some crazy plays.
And that one went up and seen that one made that grab. Man, his vertical was crazy on that one.
And what's crazy is he's made plays like that for virtually 2 years in a row. Like other than the time he was Bradley mentioned he was injured this year. I mean, that kid's going to be a stud in the MLB, and I'd be very surprised if everything stays the same right now. But I'd be very surprised if he didn't go number one overall in the draft coming up in a few months here.
Yeah, not too long now.
This feels like from the moment I met the dude, it's like that's the place he's been making. It's like that's the only thing I've seen from him. It's just like,
facts.
Yeah, I like baseball, and I know that's special. It's just like wow.
Yeah, what's crazy is there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys on the team that, have a lot of talent as well. But there's a lot of guys on that team last year that I thought, were just as talented as JJ was in some assets. And they didn't really get mentioned, but they've gone on to do things in the league. I believe, what's it? I had his name right on the top of it's Tucker something. Anyway, he's a great base runner. He led the team in steals for a couple of years there, but
Oh yeah,
he's
I
making waves
remember
in
him
the league
last
now.
year. I was a fan of his game. Like, was he like an outfielder, right?
Yeah, and super quick.
What's his
Yeah,
name? Tevin Tucker, I think. Was that
Tevin
right?
Tucker. That's
That's it.
exactly
Yeah.
who it was. I remember the Tucker, but I couldn't
I
remember
remember
the
hearing his
name.
name a lot last year. That's the only reason it came to me, is because that's the two players that seemed like I heard
Yeah.
about a lot, was him and JJ Weatherholt.
And this year
Yeah.
feels like Grant Hussey, or I guess that's how you pronounce it.
What's cool about Grant Hussey is I think we've all contributed to the NIL space and the Country Roads Trust and those types of deals. You get the little cards and stuff from the players that are thanking you for your contribution and things like that. Mine was from Grant Hussey, and it was before I ever even knew who he was. And he just broke the all-time home run record for WVU a couple of weeks ago. And the coolest thing about that, I thought, was he did that in PNC Park. So what better place to break the record?
That works. So this is the first time we've all really had a chance to get together though since the spring and kind of talk about it a little bit. So we all got to give our opinions here on the West Virginia, new uniform set they're going to be wearing this year. Completely new look. I'm sure we all saw it unveiled. But Brad, let's lead off with you, because I definitely really haven't got a chance to hear your opinions. What are your thoughts on this new look for the Mountaineers for the upcoming season?
Yeah, so gut reaction, I honestly thought there was a bit too much going on. It's like you got a little bit of everything everywhere, you know what I mean? And I showed it to Cheyenne, and she really loved them. So I was like, hey, like I think other people can really love these, and if other people on board, I can get on board. I think it could have done without the Mountaineers, maybe, but stripes on the sleeves, love those. I think that looks great. I think the numbers look good. Lettering looks nice.
I think so too. I think I've seen some other people say that as well. That I know the WVU Uniforms 304 account was talking about if he could change one thing, it would be just to take off. He didn't like the West Virginia Mountaineers, thought it made it.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what you're saying.
I think that maybe if you had either just the West Virginia and not the shoulder stripe, or vice versa, maybe that's kind of some people's complaint. I've grown to like it more and more, but I could definitely see where it seems a little bit busy with the West Virginia, and you got the chest plate. But personally, for me, the one thing I was hoping for was some more gold on the white. We got that. I was hoping to see the pants stripes come back. We got that. So all in all, I think overall it really kind of satisfied my expectations and even exceeded it in some areas, I think, because they did a good mix of everything. Uniforms that I liked. You got some hints from the Don Nehlen era. You got the stripe from the 2007 uniforms as well. So, and I know, Steven, I think you were talking in the past about, the flying WV on the sleeve there. That's a big addition as well. But what about you, Steven? How's kind of your overall grade of these now that you've had time to kind of sit with them a little bit since the spring?
My initial reaction was that I thought they're absolutely perfect, and for the most part, I've still sat around that for myself, just because the things you mentioned. I love the incorporation of the Neyland stripe, incorporating different eras of what teams were great at WVU. Looking at them for a little while now, I guess there's two things that I could tweak about the uniforms. One of them would be not necessarily to take the Mountaineers and the West Virginia away, just make it a less prominent feature. I think that it's too boisterous on the jersey. It jumps out at you too much. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't necessarily think that it ties into the uniforms perfectly. I will say the only other thing that I would change, I wouldn't take away the stripe on the sleeve either. I would make it thinner. Each time I look at these, I think to myself, I love the stripe, but it's like they exaggerated way too much. They took what was like a 1 inch wide stripe and made it into a 5 inch wide stripe. And so,
and then it like tapers at each end. You know what I mean? It's just like,
which that part, I guess, kind of ties into the way that it looked on the original uniform. But that's what made it look so good on the original one, in my opinion, was because it was so small and it tapered. It looked like it was just like a sewn in feature almost. I don't know.
Yeah.
But overall, still love the uniforms. Still love what the idea behind the uniforms are and what they're doing with them. And I'd still be okay which they're not going to. We know the world we live in, they're going to change in 3 years. But if they wore these for the rest of eternity, I think I'd be satisfied.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're one of my favorite sets that we've had recently, probably going back to like that 2007 set. And, if I had my druthers, the only thing that I would change personally, like you said, with the text, maybe make it a little smaller. But if you didn't have that text, We got the shoulder stripe from the 07 jerseys, but I would have liked to have the wings from the 07 jerseys.
Was getting ready to mention that as well. Yeah.
Have the wings and, maybe then a thin shoulder stripe, but then I guess you're just kind of recreating that uniform altogether. So I guess they probably couldn't do both. They kind of had to pick one or the other. But I personally kind of like the wings better than even the shoulder stripe and think it would have looked good with the wings and just the flying WV. But I think overall I'd probably give them A-, B+ still personally.
Yeah. We'll see with the thing with the wings coming up on the chest like that. My favorite thing about that incorporation was it not only incorporates the 07 uniforms with the things that those teams did, but it also, goes back to just the era before that with, when Pat White and Steve Slayton were freshmen and when Rasheed Marshall was a quarterback there and you got Pac-Man Jones, all of these different guys that wore those were good teams too. So like I don't know. I feel like that would have been a good incorporation to add in both of those eras instead of just talking about one of them.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point for sure. That would have kind of brought in both of those. Maybe moving forward, we'll see what they do. Maybe the next set they'll hear this and they'll bring back the wings or something. Maybe that's what they're going to continue to try and do is just kind of pick out different pieces from other uniform sets in the past and kind of make it a modern twist, which I wouldn't be mad about. But speaking of a modern twist, that wasn't the only uniform that was revealed. That was the only ones they showed us at the spring game. They made us wait a little bit, a couple weeks later or so.
Which now that we're live.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now that we're live and I got a platform to stand on to say what I want to say. If anybody from the school of West Virginia is listening to me, what were y'all thinking?
Yeah.
You waited 3 days.
I'm with you. You
waited 3 days.
It wasn't even a couple weeks. It was a few days, wasn't it? You're right.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
I don't. Yeah. You waited 3 days. What my whole thinking behind it was, we're going to get to see these uniforms today. And then when they said that we weren't, I'm like, okay, that's cool. They're going to wait until what I thought at the time would be the Penn State game when they're going to, unveil these uniforms and get us hype for game week. And that's going to be something to get us extra lit. And I was for that. And then 3 days later, they dropped that bombshell. And I was like, don't agree with either. I don't agree with either.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, if they wanted to have because they had shot the reveal video in the coal mine and stuff, well, you could have still played that on the video board and had somebody walk out in the uniform, got a big pop. But
I would have been better.
I don't know why they didn't.
If it would have done in the stadium.
I don't know what their thought process was there, but that aside, Brad, what's your thoughts overall on the Coal Rush uniforms? Fans have been clamoring for the black uniforms for a long time. Finally getting them this year, and it sounds like they're going to be an alternate, for some time moving forward for West Virginia, honoring the coal mining industry. Nice, not a lot of nice touches there on that uniform to do that. What was your thoughts when you first saw them?
Yeah, no, I thought they looked great. I definitely think that, in my head, I expected more of the black and yellow, instead of like the dusty coal in the numbers. But I think that I like it better this way, like with the reflective silver that they went with, because I think it's just like more traditional, even though it's not keeping really with the school colors. That would have looked nasty with some gold and blue in there, like a little pop of gold somewhere would have been lovely, But I get it. I think there was because I also think there's a lot of hype building between this jersey and like the Penn State game. A lot of people were hoping for a night game, Coal Rush. I say, and now that that's kind of died off, I feel like people are like, well, like I don't even want it
included in that.
Yeah, like don't do it till you have a night game, but like you're not even guaranteed a night game. How many years did Neil Brown go without having a night game in Morgantown?
No. We got one, but it's Albany.
We got a lot. So we got a lot last year.
It's Albany. If they do it for so if it's not Penn State, which it's not, and if it is Penn State, it'll be the only game that I ever go to that I don't support like the color scheme that the team is trying to do, because which all of us have been on that to the first game of football season. No, not happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wearing anything black that day. But the next game on the schedule that I'm looking at, I would think would be Kansas. If Kansas is what we think Kansas is going to be by that point of the season, and if we're what we're hoping we're going to be by that point of the season, that's the next best one to wear it to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think so, and that'd be a good game to do it too. I mean, we owe them some revenge on Mountaineer Field, so
absolutely,
for sure.
So now I wonder what the opening scheme is going to be.
It's good.
I would say traditional. I would if I'm a betting man,
Probably.
I would say blue hat, blue shirt, blue or gold pants, which I'm cool with. I'm cool with playing a classic rivalry. You go classic look.
Right, and, like, I was hoping for the night game too, but, the good side of it is, if there is a positive side to the noon kickoff, it's Fox Big Noon, so you get the pregame show there,
Absolutely.
coming to town. That's a big deal. They're gonna be promoting us and stuff, so, we do have that side of it at least, even though we won't get to see those black uniforms. But, now that we've carved out a little bit of section for, the uniform talk from the spring, anything back, going back performance-wise, stand out, anything you guys wanna talk about that we didn't really get a chance to touch on, post-spring, since we're gonna kinda lead in now into more, I guess, preseason stuff. Is there anything going back you guys wanna touch on that we haven't addressed?
Where's the spring game out on YouTube, man? Why can't you find this thing anywhere ever at all?
I'll help you out, Brad. You got ESPN Plus?
I do have ESPN Plus. Do they have it posted on there?
Check it out. Mm-hmm. Yep, check it out on
Well,
there.
Okay.
Look at that.
I was wondering because our guy, I'm sure
WVU
everybody.
RX, man, the most underrated, the most under promoted person in all of Mountaineer social media.
I'm just hoping that that's not a sign that he's not going to be doing that for this whole season, because we need WVRX man around. Sometimes he's that resource to get those game rewatches in. Like you said, definitely underappreciated.
Absolutely. I know he's gotten probably a little under 2,000 views just from myself alone in the last couple of years because I go back and I watch every single. Like, just for example, this, last year I did it. I'm going to do it this year again, too. I watch every single time that we've won against Penn State, which is twice, if you didn't know. It's been more than that, but the two significant times, it's the most important.
Soon to be three. Soon to be a third.
Yeah.
Soon to be three.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess that would be me by throwing some of these on if I was talking like that.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. We just got picked to be the number one in the Big 12, right? Anybody can be in the Big 12.
Come on, if we're talking about beating Penn State.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not that far off from the old fabled season prediction roundtable.
That's right. We're just a couple months away now. It's getting close, guys. It's getting close. But speaking of getting close to the season, West Virginia's also been getting close to some recruits, bringing them in on some visits. And
oh my God, yeah.
Off. They had a big visit weekend this past week, and we've already gotten 2 commits that we know of, but there's been some more let's go tweets that are unaccounted for. So by the time you're listening to this, they may have already gone public with some more commits. But we got to talk about, these couple recent ones. Let's lead it off with the running back, who is absolutely a very exciting commitment for West Virginia to pick up. I'm going to pull up his huddle here. We're going to run some of his highlights onto the screen while we talk about him a little bit. But this is DeAndre Desenor out of the state of Florida. All right, and as we roll his highlights, you're going to see some speed right off the bat in this kick return from DeAndre Desenor out of Delray Beach, Florida. He kind of fits the mold of, some previous West Virginia running backs, kind of that small stature, quick twitch guy, 5'9", 180. You think back to, the Jock Sanders, Noel Devines, those type of players, and he's that type of level of recruit actually as well. A 4-star commit, choosing West Virginia over all kinds of places, Penn State, Alabama, Florida, you name it. Everyone was after DeAndre Desenor, and the Mountaineers land him. He's actually right now the 3rd highest rated running back commit in WVU history, behind a couple of guys named Noel Devine and Jason Gwaltney that you may know from the past. So, the most recent, well, I guess he's not the most recent anymore, but one of the 2 most recent West Virginia commits to add to this class, continues a good streak, of adding running backs in recent classes. But you guys' thoughts on DeAndre Desenor? What are you thinking, Stephen?
Pure speed is what I'm seeing. This is actually the first time that I've gotten the chance to see his highlights. I've seen the news break. I think it was a couple of days ago when the news broke on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Am I thinking of the right? I know we've gotten a couple of different ones in the last.
Or one of the 2.
Literally today has been popping off too, so you're not.
Yeah, there was Tariq. We got a Tariq something today. I know. I remember. Mallory. That's it.
I got him up next.
Yeah, this guy looks just nothing but pure speed.
Boy, does he know how to put his foot in the ground though. Like he just there's been several times he's just you know what I mean? Like you just gave him that. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna put my foot in the ground, dude. That you love to see. But sometimes you can lose that in a player, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to find.
Like
but
that right there, that ability to just miss a defender with quickness, that's special.
Oh, no. He's using the speed on that one. Pure speed on that one.
He's got great speed.
I was about to be a 98 yarder.
Take it to the house all the way.
About to be a 98 yarder. That was a big hole though.
And look at him. Look at
nobody catching him though.
That guy,
nobody catching him though.
That guy had an angle.
Good angle by the defender too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. This is exciting because you think about
when
you're adding him to a backfield that's going to have C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, and we haven't even talked about the two running backs coming in this year that we haven't had a chance to see yet, Dior Hubbard and Trayvon Dunbar, who I think are both going to be good as well. So we're talking about an absolutely loaded running back room, and this looks like a great piece for the future as West Virginia continues to collect good running backs and collect good pieces in this 2025 class. Let's move on and talk now about the next one. I think Steven set up a good tease there for us with Tariq Mallory. They call him Magic. He was previously committed to Wake Forest, actually. Came in on the visit to WVU. The Mountaineers able to flip him from Wake Forest, get him to come to West Virginia, and land the commitment from him now as well. And he's that kind of big body receiver that Neil Brown likes to have around. I'm going to pull up some of his highlights as well, let those play as we talk about him. But I've talked about in the past about Neil Brown liking to have those, longer type receivers. You can go back to his days at Troy and see it. And then, of course, here at WVU, he had, George Campbell early on, then Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Now he's went out and got, another transfer that we'll talk about that can help this season. That's that kind of lengthy guy. But that's what Tariq Magic Mallory, I think, really brings. Is going to be great size. Coming in at 6'5" already, 190 pounds. He'll probably have to get, with Mike Joseph a little bit and add some to that frame. But as you see here in these highlights, he's got good speed for his size as well. And I think is another great addition and a great coup by this coaching staff to get him to flip after being previously committed to Wake Forest.
Yeah. I've been excited about all of these guys, man. This guy just looks like he doesn't have not a ton of speed that shows on film. But you can tell that he's got true speed even with just watching him play.
You put him in a weight room with Mike Joseph for a little while. Yeah, that guy's going to get dangerous, lethal.
Look at that. 6'5".
This is where you're going to see if Neil Brown can take a guy. Like this year is going to be a good test with the guy that just came in from Mississippi State.
Yeah, Justin Robinson.
Yeah, 6'4" is like the first. Like Neil Brown's getting some length back in there.
Yeah, he's trying to get that body on the outside, and he's got some guys down the future, I think. And this is one that hopefully will add to that. Do want to add that he is a top 10 player out of the state of Connecticut here in this 2025 class. 6'5", 190 pounds, like we said. And so good look at him there, and a good look at DeAndre Desenor earlier as well. If you guys want, you can check those out on Huddle. But with that, let me go ahead and pull up the full class now here with our recruiting tracker. We'll get into transfers momentarily. But the 2025 class now shaping up pretty good. Like I said earlier, there's been some more, let's go tweets that have come out. So for now, we know for sure of these 9 commitments, but it may be in double digits by the time you're listening or watching this episode. For sure, there's probably some more coming down the line. Like I said, big visit weekend. But we see West Virginia locking down, the in-state recruits, doing a great job in those borderline states. And then, of course, now dipping out of that range, going to Connecticut to get Tariq Magic Mallory. And then, of course, Florida to get DeAndre Desenor. But really liking this upcoming class in 2025. Any standout guys there that you see on that list, Brad?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of hype around Gavin Crawford. I've seen a lot of people hyping him up and saying he's actually been a big part, I think, of this pipeline that's getting this recruiting class going. So if you guys want to check somebody out, that's who I would check out, is Gavin Crawford down there, offensive lineman from Maryland.
Yeah, I think so too. Crawford and Buchanan, both actually from Good Counsel High School, offensive linemen. And then this past class, West Virginia's bringing in Kyle Altuner. He'll be a freshman this year. So West Virginia having a little pipeline there to Good Counsel High School with some of those offensive linemen. Stephen, what about you? Anybody on this list that you're particularly interested in and watching in the future?
DeAndre Desenor, just because of the highlights that we just watched. Another thing that jumps out to me, there's 2 more players on this list right here alone, and it's just the beginning of this class that are from the state of West Virginia. So that's another thing that I want to continue to echo, is that Neil Brown has – that's one thing that I think that he's added to the culture that is not valued enough among Mountaineer fans as a whole, is how much he is, started to recruit the state of West Virginia, and how much it's obviously helping the program at West Virginia University as well, because in my eyes and on paper as well, we've done a lot better since we've done so. So
Yeah,
shout out to old
absolutely.
Neil Breezy.
Neil Breezy, every year since he's been here,
Hey,
he's talked about locking down
anybody
the state. He's done that.
is anybody in here Migos fans? Because Neil Breezy's been in the kitchen, wrist twisting like a stir fry here lately.
Hey, there you go. There you go. My man's in there cooking. He's in there cooking and hopefully continues to cook with this 2025 class. I think, shaping up really good already. You see a lot of these names. You see a lot of the size. You see where they're coming from. He promised to lock down the state of WV and, kind of that 300-mile radius around. He's doing both of those things. And I think, as Steve mentioned there, DeAndre Desenor has a great chance to be, the top-ranked player in this class probably, as he's, one of the highest-rated running back recruits that West Virginia's ever gotten a commitment from. Let's keep that in mind. This is a big-time commit West Virginia's gotten recently, and hopefully some more big-time commits coming in the future. But speaking of commitments, guys, we've got to talk high school recruiting. That's a bit more in the future. But now we're getting closer and closer to the preseason. We can talk more about, the guys that are contribute to this upcoming season. And West Virginia's done a great job in the transfer portal. We knew that, before the spring. But even since, the spring game ended, West Virginia's added, a few pieces here. If you look down towards the bottom of this list, I'm going to highlight the ones that West Virginia's added, since the spring ended, because I don't think we've all really had a chance to get together and talk about these guys yet. Cornerback Dantes Fagan from Charlotte. Tight end Gregory Genross, one of the highest rated junior college tight ends, 6'7" guy. You're adding to the mix there. You're now going to have 3 6'7" tight ends on the roster. Quarterback Ryder Burton coming over from BYU, becoming that third scholarship quarterback on the roster, which will be joined by Khalil Wilkins, another freshman that's coming in as well. So West Virginia should have 4 scholarship quarterbacks this year instead of last year when they had to go through it with 3. But then you also added Kikora Tarnu from Jacksonville State, and over there, one of 2 transfers West Virginia got from old Coach Rod. And then we were teasing him up a little bit because he's probably going to be a contributor this season coming over for his final year of football from Mississippi State. Big, tall Justin Robinson, 6'4", and I think going to be a great addition to this roster. But looking at those names we've added, kind of since the spring, Stephen, what kind of stands out to you there?
Well, first and foremost, the biggest one that stands out to me is Justin Robinson. I didn't expect us to go get another wide receiver for this upcoming season. If I'm being completely honest with you, I thought we had what we were going to get, especially when we got Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State. I thought, okay, we got our guys. But it makes it an interesting scenario going into this season. Initially, I know that we all talked in the group chat about it, about how that's going to affect some of the other guys' playing time. I think it could be a good thing. I think at times last year, it was noticeable how fatigued some of our guys were on offense because they just had to keep going and going and going. I think that this transfer alone really helps that. You really can keep guys fresher throughout games longer and throughout the season longer because it's no secret how injuries has plagued us in very serious points of the season and the better part of the last decade. So I really like that one. Another one that really kind of jumped out to me was the Ryder Burton.
Gotta love the name Ryder.
Yeah, right.
No doubt.
Ryder Dean, our boy, friend of the show.
He called me when we got him, freaking out. He's like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "The quarterback's name is Ryder."
Gotta love that. You gotta love that. But yeah, I didn't expect us to go get another quarterback. I understand looking at it on paper why you kind of need a fourth guy. Just to be safe and less risky about things. I understand that. Not really from our standpoint, but from his standpoint. Him transferring to us to be a third string backup, that we'll take it. We'll take it. But I just didn't see it coming.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a guy with years. He probably thinks he can come in and be better than Nico Markhill. You know what I mean? At least that's the mentality you've got to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are, this might have something to say about Khalil Wilkins as well, though. So,
yeah, it's tough to say. I think, essentially for me, I think that it still kind of seems like they're trying to keep a quarterback in like almost every class, give or take, really, because you had the redshirt freshman in Sean Boyle, and then he left, and so they kind of filled him in with the redshirt freshman. So I think the best part of it for me when I look at it is at least none of these guys are in the exact same class. You're going to have Wilkins as a freshman,
Right.
Burton as a redshirt freshman, Nico as a junior, and Garrett as a senior. So, I mean, ideally, all of these guys hopefully stick around and wait for their turn like Garrett has and like Nico looks like he's going to do. It's something that could possibly happen. It's rare nowadays, but I didn't think it would happen with Garrett or Nico, and looks like it's going to happen with both those. So who knows? But I do like us keeping kind of a quarterback in each year there, so you have options moving forward.
I think it's kind of weird because Garrett, I'm like you. At a lot of times, I expected him to transfer out, and I'm very glad that he didn't, obviously. But Nico, I've never once thought that. And anytime that anybody's brought it up in comments, it's even to the opposite of that. I'm like, no, I would never believe that. But I think it's just because so much, like Nico has been so bought in since even before he got on campus. Like the day he committed to West Virginia University, you could tell he was a Mountaineer and was going to be one.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's one kid that I'm very, very excited to see play.
His dad has jet skis on Cheat Lake. Like,
He's not going anywhere.
He's here. Yeah, he's here.
yeah.
It is interesting though when you think about 2 of the 4 quarterbacks on the roster now, because Nico, from Colorado, Arizona, and then Ryder Burton, from Utah. So you got 2 West Coast guys on the roster at quarterbacks. I never saw that one and didn't have that.
Hey,
on my
that
video.
new Big 12 pipeline's crazy, ain't it?
That's right. That's right, man. You never know what you're going to get. We're in all time zones. But any other thoughts on transfers before we kind of transition into some more stuff about this upcoming season and this year's team, kind of leading into some really exciting stuff that we want to talk about, both happening at Mountaineer Field for this upcoming season, and then some praise that West Virginia's getting as well. But you guys got anything else on transfers before we get there?
I know you will see Gregory Grinruss.
Yeah.
I know that he's like, they said he's got good hands and he's like, fairly big. So
then you add in the fact that
just trying to find people that like
why
definitely.
can I not remember anybody's name today? Kyle, what's his last name? Tight end we got.
Cole Taylor.
Cole Taylor. Kyle Taylor. Yeah, that guy. Given his injury, I think you do, especially at the beginning of the season. I think you see a lot of June Ross. But one thing I wanted to add to the transfer, I don't think that it's just a coincidence that you have 2 guys on there from Jacksonville State. I think that anybody that has a logical brain can see that was help from somebody else. So
Connection.
There's a connection there. Yeah.
The last thing that I want to add is just that I'm glad to see us, really hitting that transfer portal to add, defensive back bodies, just because, last season we obviously hit really big on that with Beanie. But I think even beyond that, they saw that last year they were really hit, with injury bugs and other things that happened and killed the depth to where you had, Beanie and Malachi Ruffin pretty much having to play almost every snap all game. And, that hurt you late in the season. That hurt you late in games. So I think they're adding, multiple bodies, obviously, to make sure they have the right ones. They want to kind of shift through these guys and let it work out and get your top ones. But they also are going to have depth there, so if anything does happen, they have kind of insurance policies with all the defensive backs that they've added, plus the ones that we had returning. I expect our secondary to be in a lot better shape this season, I think.
Absolutely. Aiden Garnes is one that I've got high on my list. Excited to see watch.
Yeah, he was impressive in the spring.
Play.
He was impressive in the spring for sure. I like him. I like Garnett Hollis. I like a lot of those we brought in. And as you mentioned, the guy from Jacksonville State, I think he's kind of going to be a sleeper as well. But talking about some exciting things for the upcoming season, as those transfers are exciting as well. How about this? Recently just came out, literally last night's sports line, Tony Caridi kind of dropped this bomb. And it's really funny because it's something I think we've all kind of been talking about. Other stadiums have this, and we were knowing that Mountaineer Field, Milan Puskar Stadium, was needing some upgrades. Sounds like they're going to have one of those for the upcoming season. Check out this clip from Tony Caridi.
Everyone wants to know, like, dot the I, cross the T stuff. What's going on over at the football stadium? People are locked in. What's going on? Well, for those of you that don't live around here, there's a massive crane that is up now at the football stadium, and they have begun to change out the lights. Yeah.
New bulbs like from Lowe's, or what'd they do?
I think they went to Menards and to Lowe's this time because they needed a lot of them. I've been walking. I walk near there in the morning, and I've been seeing these tractor trailers pretty much for the last month. bringing those lights in. And so they're all there, and the crane went up, and now they're setting those lights. And the nice thing about those is they're the LEDs, which means that you can, because there's a button somewhere, but they're going to just turn those on and turn those off. Just switch them on, switch them off, and you don't have the warm up that is normally needed for the type of lights that they have there now. You can do fancy, cool stuff now at nighttime and flash those babies on and off and get you a whole nother kind of feel to the stadium, but they're going up.
All right, gentlemen. So big news there, exciting news. Thoughts on the LED lights that are going to be at Milan Puskar Stadium this year?
Dude, it's going to go insane. It's going to be nice. It's going to be... Oh, Cass decided to go crazy. Sorry. Yeah.
Speaking of
Cass said, "Let me show you a rave." Yeah, no, I think it's really gonna take the intensity of Milan Puskar Stadium to the next level. I think that it's gonna allow the energy to absolutely blow the top off the roof. And if you thought Morgantown's been crazy before, I think some of its craziest days might be ahead of it.
Have you guys, just to precursor this, have you guys, either one of you, been by Mitchell Stadium in Bluefield in probably the last 6 months or so?
I don't think I have.
Specifically at nighttime.
No.
Okay. A lot of our listeners probably know where Bluefield High School is. If you've been there, awesome. If you've been there since what I'm talking about, awesome. They have the same style lights that are being installed at WVU. They can do anything that you can possibly imagine. They can create the craziest light shows that stuff that you've never seen stadium lights that size be able to do. And what I think is the coolest thing about it is, with Bluefield, at least, they keep theirs in an ambient blue light every night. So the whole stadium is just lit up in blue. So that's one thing I'm excited for. West Virginia is obviously not going to be doing that in games, but while you're in Morgantown, you're just riding by the stadium. That'd be a cool feature for people to just, looking at the stadium as a structure, have it lit in blue and gold or what have you. But for game days, I have said on this show, I know that I have many times, and I know that I've mentioned as a cruise with the addition of the black uniforms and this new stadium lighting corporation, I'm manifesting, and what I hope can happen is they can turn the lights off in the entire stadium, right? They have fog rolling from the entranceway. And then one of the players, the white stripe on the front of the helmet is supposed to be representative of a coal miner's helmet, the light on a coal miner's helmet, correct? So what if coming from the tunnel was an actual light from one of the players' helmets? Like one of the players is actually wearing a coal miner's helmet, like we would don the state flag. You wear the coal miner's helmet for that game. And then you have 7 Nation Army start playing, get everybody into that, you know what I mean? And then, I don't know. I just think about how the atmosphere in the stadium.
You're talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't even have to be like 7 Nation Army. It could be like,
it doesn't. 7 Nation Army is just because that's what they always play.
Well, I feel you though.
No, 100%. That's what I was thinking. Like when I first heard Greene talk about it, was him. When he said you could cut them on and off. Literally, that's one of the first things that came to my head was cold rush for real. Turn off all the lights, have the miners and what's on them, like you'd always talked about, Steven. Because that's why I texted you when I first heard it, because you had always talked about that idea, so I knew you'd be excited for it.
So hype. If it's anything I'm more excited than the uniforms about, I legitimately think I'm most excited about those lights, you guys. I've wanted this for a very long time, but just because of the capabilities that you can, if you watch some of the other college football games from stadiums that have done that, where was it? Maybe UCF. I could be wrong, but I think it was UCF or Houston. One of them has those lights. And during the game, when they would score a touchdown, it would just be lights out and then spotlights, like strobe lights going around the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, that's cool. That's a different effect.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to take it to the next level. It is going to make it absolutely ruckus.
Yeah. And not even just the features we're talking about, if you do cool entrances, do all that, but just I'd say first night game you walk into, it's going to have a completely different look to it. You're going to be like, wow, this really pops.
Hey, we get a week 2.
Yeah. That's true. Against Albany, you get to see them in action right away. So that'll be exciting. I can't wait. But speaking of exciting things, How about On3 Sports? A lot of you guys probably know them. Pretty popular, sports website. A lot of, really good analysts there, Andy Staples being one of them. And him and his co-host recently did a show kind of going through a Big 12 preview, kind of providing, what they felt like the floor and the ceilings were for each team.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you because the team that I think will not only play in the Big 12 championship game, but win the Big 12 championship, we haven't even talked about yet.
Neil Brown going from the hot seat to holding up the trophy? Is that what we're going to talk about? West Virginia?
That's right. Let's talk about the 2024
Oh my goodness.
West Virginia Mountaineers.
I really like Neil Brown, and I was really happy for him getting off basically, coaching his way off the hot seat. I thought he did a tremendous job last season. The way they've reorganized their collective, like they didn't lose anybody between 22 and 23 that they cared about keeping. Same thing this year. They've got everybody back that they want to keep. This is a fun group. This is a fun team to watch.
And if you look at Neil Brown's time at Troy too, like it seemed like last year kind of fell in line with what happened to him the year before. They blew up and won 10 games in back-to-back seasons at Troy. So it just feels like things are starting to fall into place. Like it felt like Neil Brown was just a guy kind of patrolling the sidelines for his first few years at West Virginia. Now it feels like this is Neil Brown's program. And, we heard – so he came out of spring practice and he said offensive line is going to be a strength. And it was like you just lost Zach Frazier – who's one of the best centers in college football last year. You just lost Doug Nestor as a great offensive line. Like, what do you mean it's going to be a strength of this team? I love the confidence that he has, that he does have some dudes back at the offensive line. There's no doubt about that. So the reason I'm picking West Virginia to win the conference is I think they're as good up front on both lines of scrimmage as anybody. And I think they've got the best quarterback, arguably, of the conference in Garrett Greene, who just scratched the surface on his potential last year. I mean, he had some fantastic games. He did have some weird ones. The end of the Houston game was unbelievable where they lost Houston.
Yeah, that was a very strange game. Yeah.
But I'm really high on Garrett Greene. I'm really high on their offensive and defensive lines. And we've heard all of the right things out of Morgantown this offseason, and I like their schedule too.
How about, so Garrett Greene also dual threat, averaged 6 yards a carry last year. He runs really well. Jaheim White averaged 7.7 yards a carry. Now, CJ Donaldson is the big back, is the kind of the bruiser, but Jaheim White's the one who should really scare you.
Agreed. In fact, I'm probably going to pick him to be the player of the year in the Big 12 because it's usually a guy that comes from out of nowhere. I mean, obviously, Ollie Gordon came kind of out of nowhere last year. It could very much emerge this year. But, yeah, the way that he ran and then how we've heard him discussed throughout this offseason, he's going to be the guy. He's going to get the carries. Now, they still have, to your point, they still have other mouths to feed with Donaldson and whatnot. But I just think White is going to be so good. Yeah, he's going to be so good. I think they found some things at the end of the year with White and Garrett Greene that they really like.
All right, gentlemen. So if that doesn't get you excited and get you hyped up, then I don't know what will. Thoughts there on some of the things they were saying, not only picking West Virginia, to win the Big 12, but also maybe Jaheim White is Big 12 Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think the potential's there. I think the ceiling is a glass right at this point. Like you can't see the top of it right now. Like it's up there somewhere. And at this point, we just got to sit back and enjoy watching it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's no secret how wide open this conference is this year. With just being so many different teams that could be able to go get that. But I think that from looking at the teams that I've been able to look at so far, because I've been trying to study up and get ready for the season prediction roundtable in a few months. But looking at the ones that I've looked at so far, nobody really has anything set in stone in this conference like West Virginia has. You mentioned earlier that this would possibly be the deepest running back room since Neil Brown's been here. I want you to take a look at this team and tell me a position on offense at least. Maybe defense you can find a couple, but on offense at least, find me a position that we're not deep, that we don't have quality depth at. And on defense, you could echo that same sentiment for a lot of those positions as well. The defensive line, the middle linebacking core, the linebacking core as a whole probably has more depth in it than not just in the Neil Brown era, but in the last decade and a half that I can remember.
Seriously.
I mean, I really truly believe, people every single year even though I try to be as realistic as I possibly can be. I try to pride myself on being a non-delusional WVU fan because I know that there are a lot of people that think we should win a national championship and are going to win a national championship every year. I try not to follow that sentiment. Do I think we're going to win a national championship this year? No, I do not. Do I think a Big 12 championship is very attainable? Yes, I do. I think that it is way more attainable than what we have been able to see in a long, long time.
I agree.
And
the thing with that is, like, if
I'm
you
really
get a Big
excited.
12 championship, you're in the national championship. Like you're
well, you're in the playoff, right? So
yeah.
So I mean, like, yeah,
with a first round bye as well.
So I'm saying, like, I don't mean the national championship like the game. I meant just like you're in the running for that. Like you're now
right
in that conversation.
Yep. So I mean, with as many bad things, whether no matter how you view it, with as many bad things that you could say that are going on in college football nowadays, I think that right now is a very positive place for West Virginia football to be. Not only just because of the way that our program has changed in the last 5 years because of Neil Brown, but also because of the way college football and the landscape of it has changed in just the last couple of years. I think that has really helped go in West Virginia's favor. And yeah, I'm ranting now, but
no, I'm with you.
It's exciting stuff.
100%. And like, as you teased right there a little bit too, you heard them talk in that video, and they were talking a little bit about Neil Brown, but they were, going on about the offense. And I think that's what everyone's looking at, because we returned almost everybody besides Zach Frazier, and they were super explosive at the end of the year when they kind of found out and got to do what they kind of wanted to do because they finally have the pieces. But I think what's really kind of, flying under the radar, and I'm kind of glad because I think it's going to really surprise some people, is the way that they've, really built this defense up this offseason. You talked about the linebackers. You're going to have a healthy Trey Lathan paired with, Trotter, who I think Trotter looked extremely impressive in the spring. He looks like an NFL player as a redshirt freshman. And we talked about the defensive back bodies they've added. I think that you're going to have depth there on the defensive side, and I think you've got some real talent there as long as everyone can stay healthy and you can avoid the injury bug. I think that West Virginia's defense being improved is what's going to make them a legit contender. We know the offense is there if they even, maintain. But if that defense improves, we're talking about some big things that could possibly happen in the fall for the Mountaineers.
Absolutely. And there's never been a better time to do it either. You know what I mean? Like, this is, like Steven's mentioned a bunch of times, so there's really nobody poised to take over. Right now Utah's got the cojones. At least they think they do. You know what I mean? So it's just like, if we're going to do it, now would be the best time. Like,
that's right. It's why you
really change
that. I think is the most interesting thing, because you mentioned Utah. This will be the first time that we've played in a conference that we don't play a round robin, right? I think that'll be an interesting dynamic, at least for our program and our fans to see for the first time. People in like the Big Ten and the SEC, they're used to that kind of stuff, but this will be really the first time that we're seeing like say that we do, just as a hypothetical, say we do run the table in the Big 12, we go undefeated in the Big 12 conference this year, we beat Arizona, we beat all the guys that we're supposed to beat. Utah does the same. What kind of scenarios does that create in a Big 12 championship game?
Yeah.
Does the loser also go to the playoff but not get the bye? You know what I mean? Like, it's those kinds of things that I'm kind of interested to see how they play out.
Well, you know what I just realized while you guys were talking, because you both kind of made me come to this realization, because Bradley, you're talking about Utah, they're kind of the media darling. They're who's everybody's talking about. Steven, you're talking about, it's a new conference being wide open. And all of a sudden it just clicked for me. And I thought about 2005. 2005, if you guys remember, it's the new Big East, no more Miami, no more VT. Those schools are gone, but you're bringing in some new schools. And all off season, the only talk in the Big East was about Louisville. Louisville's the clear favorite here in the Big East. They're going to win this conference, but it was wide open, similar to this year. And we all know how that turned out for the Mountaineers. So, hopefully history repeats itself, because I'm looking at Utah, coming into the conference here in 2024 and hearing kind of a lot of the same things that we heard back in 2005. And, nobody was really talking about West Virginia too much. And I think that's kind of the way we like it. We did kind of point out the praise there, but for the most part, West Virginia's kind of flying under the radar, and hopefully it stays that way, because I think we're really going to surprise people with how big of a contender we are overall.
Oh, I was very confident coming out of last season that okay, we're going to be preseason top 25 next year. There's no doubt in my mind this team is returning a lot of players and a lot of key positions that they need in order to be successful. And they're going to have depth, at a lot of those positions as well. And that was before we got anything in the transfer portal or, a lot of things happened since then. And we haven't lost. We've only added. And at that point, I thought to myself, we're probably going to be top 25 preseason, somewhere in the 22, 25 range. And some people have had us up there, but for the most part, I've seen USA Today, AP, all the ones that release these super early polls at this time of the year, around the 40 and 45 mark. And if you want a new 14, that would be my 14, because that is pure disrespect in my opinion. Because I think if not anything else, I think West Virginia, the people that we have on our roster have proven themselves and have proven that they can win games. Garrett Greene's not flying under the radar. That's for sure, because that guy's getting mentioned from everybody that I'm seeing.
True.
And I don't know. I think people get overshadowed, and let me precurse this next part by saying that I'm a fan of Deion Sanders, and I'm a fan of the Colorado football program and what it's become and what they have done. Everything. I love the culture until West Virginia plays them. I mean, they're probably up there with one of my favorite teams in the country, just with the way that they're being ran right now. But I also know that team is being way overhyped, because, like I said, I'm a fan of them. I'm a fan of what they're doing. I'm a fan of what they've done and what they're trying to do. Until you actually do that, you shouldn't be getting the credit for it. And why do I say that? Because West Virginia has been fighting this battle for a long time now. Okay. And we've done it on the field and we still don't get the credit. So,
No, I get it.
People want to talk about the new Big 12 and a lot of people are mentioning Colorado. And to me, I think it's a slap in the face if you're a West Virginia football player or anybody else that's in the top echelon of this league that deserves those mentions more than some of those guys that haven't really done it yet. And like I say, Colorado's got a lot of talent. I love their football team, but I don't think that they are deserving of some of the praise that they've gotten from the national media.
Now, I'll be honest with you. I'll be surprised if Colorado ends up in the top 6 or 7 of this conference, because when I look at it, and that's no slight to them. Like you said, they got a lot of talent.
This year. Eventually, I think they will be.
But, I mean, I look at Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State. I know that's off the top of my hand. That's 5 or 6 teams I'd put ahead of them. So, they may improve. They won like 4 games last year. They may get a bowl game this year. But I think this conference right now, we're talking about, it's wide open. It's really deep. And I think that all of those teams are just got a better chance than Colorado. But, kind of getting back to, what you were talking about with West Virginia and Garrett Greene's praise, I did want to share a little bit of that praise. He was named one of the 12 most dynamic athletes at quarterback, and you see he was actually number 3. So right there, you see another Big 12 member, Jalen Daniels, on that list, but he's only behind Jalen Milroe and Caden Salter. But I wanted to share the actual, the write-up that kind of came from that because I really liked what they said here about Garrett Greene. And Stephen, you kind of provided the great segue talking about some of the praise, but the advanced analytics suggest Garrett Greene is college football's most underrated returning quarterback after he exploded onto the scene for the Mountaineers last season. He led the FBS ranks in big-time throw percentage last fall per PFF and is rarely sacked when given his mobility. It's a dangerous comparison, sure, but Greene is the closest quarterback we've seen to Johnny Manziel in the power conference ranks in several years. He is lethal on the move and can move the chains with his feet or find guys at the second level when the secondary closes in. And I love that comparison because I think we kind of talked about this in our group. That's a great comparison for Greene.
How many times?
Former Heisman winner, there's nothing wrong.
How many times have I said it? I haven't compared him to Johnny Manziel, but I've compared him to another great.
Yeah,
and a lot of times I felt like it was a disrespectful sentiment, but more and more I'm starting to see why. I believe what I'm saying in that because he reminds me of Pat so much. His demeanor, the way that he carries himself on and off the football field. When we seen him up there at the spring game, Cruz. it was like watching Pat in another person's body. The way that he carries himself, just everything. I mean, I've said that a long time about his play on the field, and people can say that he's, a different person or whatever. But look, that kind of talent is rare and it's special. And since he was a freshman at WVU, he hasn't always been the best decision maker. But I mean, Pat wasn't the best decision maker when he was a freshman and sophomore, if I remember correctly. He was a great football player and he could make plays, but throwing the football, it wasn't always there for Pat. And until his junior season, until he came out to prove to people, hey, and they threw, I think 70. It was a 70-30 split instead of passing to throwing or passing to running than what it did. I think that was a 15% jump from the previous 2 years when Pat was there. So I see a lot of similarities in him, man. I see a lot of similarities.
He's got that certain, it factor that you can't put your finger on, but he's a winner. That's what he did last season. Hopefully it continues this year. But Brad, any thoughts there on Garrett Greene, or, kind of hype for the Mountaineers or lack thereof in some cases, I guess?
Yeah, no, I right there at the tail end of what Steven just said and talked about it for a long time. It's just the it factor, It's something that West Virginia has not had at quarterback the whole entire time Neil Brown's been here. He's never had anybody with some it factor. We always thought we were going to get it, I remember believing thoroughly that Jarrett Dagey was going to be the it man because he was at 4% body fat and just was, doing stuff in practice that they had never seen before. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna get me a brown bag.
The case. Yeah, and then JT Daniels comes in and it's oh my God, he's the most analytical quarterback you've ever seen in your life. Like he knows exact coverage just from the twitch of the.
Now that one I bought into.
Like ankle,
That one I bought into.
But he really is. He's a great offensive mind, but it still just wasn't. He had no it factor to him. He had some more of it. But Garrett Greene always seemed to have that. When you saw little glimpses of him, when he got his chances to shine, like sometimes it came across as, a bit crazy when you're getting in people's faces and screaming and, you've hardly even touched the field. But you could always tell that he had it. You know what I mean? He had that swagger. And I really, truly think that this team goes as Garrett Greene goes. And whatever kind of year we're going to have depends on him.
Well, one thing that I want to echo about Garrett Greene and just kind of the person that he is, you talk about Jared Deggy, and it's no secret to Mountaineer fans how bad that was, and all the things. Garrett Greene was a full supporter of Jared Deggy. And you would think if you're a person in that position and you believe that you're better at something than someone, you wouldn't be so, positive about a situation. But I can remember several guys who I think it was Iowa State that we were playing, and then we were on a significant losing streak, and then we finally beat Iowa State that was ranked that game. And there was a clip from Garrett Greene on the sideline, and he's like, "Where's all the Jared Deggy haters now?" It's stuff like it's stuff like that. Those intangibles that I love about GG. Like,
you too.
Yeah, and then it was like 2 weeks later, and everybody was like, "Right here."
Here we are.
Like the next week, it's like, "Oh yeah, there it is again."
They came back pretty quick.
It's not that Jared Deggy was doing it's not that. It was just the fact that Garrett Greene's going to support you because you're his guy, right? And that's what you're going to get if you're on his offense. Like if you're on his offensive line, you're his guy.
Well, and there's something to that with our fans too, because the whole time everybody wanted Garrett Greene and a lot of people were clamoring for Garrett Greene. And so now that it's finally his team, I think that it feels like the fan base is really behind this team in a way that they haven't been before, especially last year when they got to see kind of the proof of concept. Once everything came together there towards the end of the year, they got a little bit healthier, and you kind of got to see them run the offense that they've kind of hoping to be run for a long time, and we kind of got to see what that looks like. And I think now we're really going to get to see that in full force this upcoming season with the healthy CJ, Jaheim, and then of course Garrett, running it all. And shout out to Neil Breezy for having the patience that he did and
dig
waiting.
the shirt, by the way, buddy.
Thank you, man. Shout out to Trey Lathan, right? But you got to give him credit because when the fans were clamoring for, Garrett Greene, it would have probably been real easy for him to, run Garrett Greene on as a starter, get a big pop from the crowd and everything. But, what if, by doing that, he was too early, and then he could have messed up that composure that we see from Garrett Greene, and he wouldn't be that it factor person that we're talking about now. So I think both of those two really were patient with each other. Garrett Greene waited his turn, and Neil Brown waited till he felt like Garrett was truly ready, and it paid dividends for us as fans last season, and I think it's going to do that even more so this upcoming season.
And it's
sure.
even I think it's even more of a long-term effect than even just seeing GG now. I think that really is going to help go into the next era with Nico, because I think Nico sitting behind Garrett and learning the things that he's gotten to learn from him and develop. I think that's only going to help Nico be better in the future. And then what does that do for the next one in line? I keep going back to it, and I shouldn't keep comparing this team to another certain team, but there's just so many similarities to me because I haven't seen this continuity in the position of quarterback for West Virginia since then. You had Rashid, then you had Pat, and it wasn't even wasn't so smooth of a transition, I guess I should say, because you had Adam Bednarik at quarterback at that time, and he had to go down with an injury before Pat got to see the field. But you had Pat, then you had Jarrett Brown for a little bit, who I didn't think was a bad quarterback, but then you have Geno. I think right now you're in a position of West Virginia to where you can really, these guys could be just as good, if not better, as a whole.
A lot of talent, a lot of depth. And like you said, they're building things up, both those rooms, the quarterback room, and we talked about the running back room earlier. We were talking about the depth on the defense. So I think now you're seeing, 5 years into this, they're really getting the program to the point that we were all kind of hoping it would be, with not only, quality talent at the top line, but down, in the 2 and 3 deep as well. You've got guys that are talented in their own right and guys that are kind of waiting on their chance. And hopefully you can, cycle guys in and out, and you're kind of, not necessarily rebuilding, but more or less reloading, kind of what it looks like West Virginia is trying to do with this offensive line. Yeah, you're replacing Zach Frazier, but you've got a lot of juniors and seniors that they're doing that with, and that's because they've done a good job developing that unit. So hopefully they're doing that across the board. It certainly seems like they are for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how it turns out this year. We're super excited, got a lot of hype going into this season, and we've touched on a lot in this episode. We want to bring back, our CRW podcast game show, Mountaineer Multiple Choice, but this episode's running a little bit long, so we'll leave that as a tease for you guys for our next episode. All three of us be back together again, and we'll bring back Mountaineer Multiple Choice to wrap up that episode. But here to kind of wrap up this one, I just want to get your all's, anything that you all wanted to touch on that we hadn't spoke on, maybe if there's anything, burning in the back of your mind, anything else, we've touched on transfers, recruiting, uniforms, stadium lights, baseball team, pretty much everything that I had in my mind. But you guys got anything else you want to address here before we get ready to close up episode 187?
Well, I think, it was a dark stain in the history of the basketball program, what happened as a whole this past season. But if it's one thing I did want to mention that we didn't, I'm also excited about basketball and the direction that it's headed. I'm really excited to see what Darren DeVries does, and really excited to see what Tucker DeVries does, and then the rest of what they can string together. I don't think that they're going to be elite starting out, but I think that what this team is going to grow into, and from what I can tell from Darren DeVries, I've always obviously been a really, really huge fan, still am a huge fan of Huggins, and what he did for this program, but really, really excited to see what the future holds for Darren DeVries and for West Virginia University.
Yeah, me too. Complete roster overhaul, one of the top transfer portal classes in the nation. Excited to see how things turn out there.
All but one player, not complete.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got Ofri coming back. That's right. Almost complete, nearly complete, but definitely, exciting time there, bringing in Coach DeVries as well, and hopefully a bright future there on that side. But Brad, what about you? Anything you want to touch on here before we get ready to close up shop?
Nah, man, it's just it's an exciting time to be a Mountaineer. I think Ren Baker's doing a hell of a job. It's so exciting to see what's going on with our athletics program in general. So, they keep doing what they're doing, and we're gonna be so successful.
Yeah, shout out to Ren Baker, man. Yeah, he's doing big things. Hopefully, we can keep him for a long time for sure. That's a great thing there. Great sentiment to end off on. And then I just want to say, thank you to you guys, whether you're watching on the video side or you're listening on the audio side. We really appreciate y'all. You can find us on any podcast platform, find us on YouTube, find us on the WV Sports Now website. If you want to find us on social media, check us out on Twitter/X at WVU Country Roads Webcast on both Facebook and Instagram. If you want to follow the EA Sports College Football video game, I'm covering that on another YouTube channel, JC's Pop Culture. You can check that out. Or also talk about movies, TV shows.
Great content, by the way. He's not going to shout himself out, but it's great content.
I appreciate that, man. But I guess that's the last thing. EA Sports College Football coming out in a month, guys. I mean, we're going to be having to, beat some people on the Mountaineers.
Also, Brad, while I got you here, what console you play on there, buddy?
I'm an Xbox guy, but I don't know. I might.
You guys
can have online Dynasty together. I'll have my own over here in PS5 land.
I'm sure they're going to make it cross-compatible. It's going to be.
Gotta have a Dynasty with somebody.
It's got to come eventually.
There you
Yeah.
Well, it's cross-plat for everything but Dynasty. That's the thing I don't understand.
Unfortunately.
Another episode, I guess.
But, that's exciting stuff, though, coming. Been some screenshots and videos going around of WVU on the game. Got our new uniforms in the game. Stadium looks good. So that's all positives, and we're excited to play with the Mountaineers. Sure you guys all are also. And we'll be covering that team in the lead-up to that 2024 season that we think is going to be a really fun one, and we can't wait to get to it, and we'll be dropping some more episodes before we get there, so stay tuned for the next one. We'll be talking some more preseason topics, probably some more recruits that come in, and we'll play a little Mountaineer multiple choice as well. But, hey, Brad, Steven, thanks. Glad to have the boys back together again.
Absolutely, man.
Sure, it feels good.
Back.
Got to hit it one more time. That's right. And we're going to be back again in the near future talking some more WVU football with you guys. So for my co-hosts, Brad and Steven, I'm Jordan Cruz. And as always, until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those